Hi, my name's Jeff Tamplin. I'm a biology professor at UNI, and I've been studying wood turtle ecology in Iowa for almost 20 years now. And we're here in Mitchell County where we're releasing two recently found wood turtles. We've glued transmitters, radio transmitters on their back, and they emit a signal every few seconds, and so we can come out here with a receiver and an antenna and we can locate where they are. And we do behavioral studies. We track how far they move, what habitats they use, how the males and females differ, how juveniles may differ from adults, how they change their habitat preferences seasonally. So one of the unusual things about wood turtles is they tend to use different types of habitats different parts of the year. So they hibernate in streams always during the winter, and then unlike many turtles, they switch their habitat preferences, and then they tend to move into open grasslands and then forested wooded areas, and they'll kind of regulate how much they move within those areas based on the air and the water temps of the area. These are long-lived turtles. Typically they don't mature until they're almost 15, 18, maybe 20 years old even sometimes. They usually nest about once a year, lay a small clutch of 6, 8, maybe 10 eggs or so. So we've got both an older female that's right here that I'm going to estimate around 40 years old. And I know that because this is a unusual species that when they grow, they continue to add growth annuli or growth rings like on a tree. And then after they get to be about 18 or 20, they stop adding those growth rings and then they slowly erode away. So not only has this older lady right here had most of her growth annuli eroded away, but she's even got places where her epidermis has become so thin that you have bone exposed on it. So that could be from her being slightly struck by a nearby roadway. It could just be from age. She's also got some spots on her plastron here where it looks like a beaver is gnawed at her sometimes. They oftentimes hibernate in beaver dens, and the beavers will sometimes gnaw at their shell to get calcium and phosphate salts and stuff out of their shell. The males and females are sexually dimorphic, and in general, for most turtles, females are larger than males, and that's an adaptation for them to produce more eggs and to have a larger clutch and to have bigger eggs. But if it's a species like a wood turtle where the males compete for mates, then there's natural selection for the males to become bigger, because generally a wood turtle population has some dominant males that battle with the subordinate males for access to mates. So they all have different home ranges, and the male home ranges typically are larger and a little bit more linear, more associated with the stream than a female's home range. But in general, this species has a large home range size compared to other turtles. They tend to move through their environment a lot. They know their areas extremely well. Wood turtles can navigate mazes better than some rats. But a 50, 60-year-old wood turtle or so knows her environment just as well as if you grew up on the same street and had lived there 50 or 60 years. You know every tree, every bush, every crack in the sidewalk. Wood turtles are the same way. They know the places they use in different months. They know where mulberry trees or red raspberry bushes are fruiting, and they know when. So basically we study how they use space and how they use habitat and how the sexes and the age classes differ. Most of what we're doing is providing this information to the state DNR and local county conservation boards so that they can help manage habitat better, or just sometimes to know, hey, how many wood turtles are here. It's a very rare species. It's endangered in the state of Iowa. It's one of the rarest species of turtles in Iowa. They have a very, very small area that they occur in Iowa. The population here in Iowa is genetically distinct from populations in, say, Wisconsin and Minnesota. And we also think that because we've recently found some wood turtle fossils that were post-Pleistocene in southwestern Iowa, we think that the Iowa wood turtle population recolonized this area after the last glacial retreat from a different glacial refugia than was used by the bulk of the wood turtle population. So if you go to Wisconsin or UP Michigan or the upper half of Michigan, those wood turtles probably spent the last glacial period in Tennessee and North Georgia, and then they recolonized this area as the glaciers retreated. But it's potentially possible that the Iowa wood turtle populations that we're encountering here used Nebraska and southwestern Iowa as their glacial retreat. So that would explain why their genetic composition is slightly different than, say, wood turtles, even as close as, say, southern Minnesota. So this is a older female, like I mentioned. Females have flat plastrons, and they have shorter tails, where the cloaca, the vent, is closer to the shell edge. Their heads are usually smaller. And then over here we have a second turtle that we're releasing today, and this is technically a subadult. So you know that because he's still adding growth rings, and you can see where this tissue right here is a little bit younger. So this center little spot right here on each of these is called a scute, but the center spot right here is what he hatched with, and then in general they're adding 1 growth ring per year. So this guy I'm estimating to be 10 or 11 years old. He has about 10 or so growth annuli. He doesn't really have much erosion of any of the annuli. He's probably still adding some. If you flip over his plastron, you can still see where the center line is still kind of vascular, and it's, you know, recently forming. So he's, you know, they're growing from this edge of each scute outwards. So this guy's still got some growth left to go. I know he's a male just because you wouldn't know that from the shell, because eventually he'll go through puberty, and over the course of the summer the shell will become concave like it is in adult males. But because as we were weighing and measuring him, we saw some components, some internal components that told me he's a male. So this is a younger guy, and he'll probably mature in the next couple of years or so. These radio transmitters we can take off. They'll never come off on their own, but if you know exactly what to do and how to do it, you can take them off to replace them or to remove them permanently. We put them on there with an epoxy that's not harmful. And so we're going to release both of these pretty close to where they were first captured. We're keeping them away from a roadway and from the river while it's flooded right now. So we're putting them in a wooded area that we think that they use. And then my field team and I will come back here, you know, every week or every 2 weeks or so, and we'll check on these. And we tend to record a lot of habitat data, but amount of canopy and ground coverage, and how far they've moved since the last time we saw them. We weigh them every time we encounter them. We take their body temperature. We're basically monitoring what they do and where they go, because each wood turtle is sort of unique in its own, has its own little place that it lives and it's familiar with, and it kind of has a routine that it, you know, may kind of express annually. So we have a lot to learn about these since they were recently encountered, and today's their first day to be released with a transmitter.
Put it kind of under there.
You know, if you did this with a painted turtle or a soft shell, it would stand.
There you go. You got it? Okay. Set it down right over
Can you
here.
gently set it down by the log? Gently.
I'm only ever nervous about this.
Oh, down. Can you do it under the log, please? Yep.
There you go.
Good job.
Yeah, that's a great place.
Thank you.
No,
Well,
yeah,
there's
those
one
are-
and there's the other. They're happy.
See, then that's still more exposed than she normally would be, but that's kind of pretty typical. And also think,
We
if
did
you're
our
not
job.
looking for them and that transmitter's not on them, you walk right by that.
Oh, totally.
But normally they're in pickle stuff.
And they move mostly at night?
No, they sleep at night. Actually, a lot of times they sleep in the water at night if it's